I'm going to invite you to remain seated, and if you would like to follow along, if you're a visual person and it helps you to see the story in front of you, I invite you to turn to page number 876 in your Pew Bible. We are continuing our walk through the book of John. And thus far, in the first 12 chapters of John, has been the first 3 years of Jesus' ministry. And we get here to chapter 13, verse 1. And this, for the next 5 chapters, is one evening. 3 years, 12 chapters, 5 chapters, 1 evening. This is big. This night in the life of Jesus is big. So, with that, I invite you to follow along as we read through John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17. Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Now the devil had already put it in the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, Jesus got up from the table. Jesus took off his outer robe and he tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. Now, when Jesus got to Simon Peter, he said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not now know what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not only my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus said to him, "One who is bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, although not all of you." For Jesus knew who was to betray him. And for this reason, he said, "Not all of you are clean." Now, after Jesus had washed their feet and had put on his robe and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your teacher and your Lord, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you should also do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the ones who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. powerful story. And it's one that makes me a little uncomfortable. If I had to pick one word to sum up the Gospel of John, both the 12 chapters that arc to this point and the rest of the story, if I had just one word, I would pick love. Overflowing, abundant love poured out. Love for the world, but really love for people just like you and me. Love. How do we show love? As human beings in this time and in this place, how do we show love? This is a real question I'm asking. How do you show love? Doing things for others. Absolutely. Sharing meals with others. Absolutely. A hug. Yes. Being a good neighbor. How do we show love? Putting others before yourself. Yeah. It's something that's pretty easy to talk about, something that I think is a little more difficult to follow through on. I have to tell you, as a pastor, I get invited into some pretty amazing moments in people's lives for which I am always grateful and humbled and a little astonished that people would want me there. But one of the places that I see love over and over and over again is around hospital beds. People being willing to step in and care for people when things are not pretty. Another place that I have seen love is at changing tables, especially after a misfire. It takes a lot of love, just saying, to be willing to go there and do those things. When someone has been sick all over themselves, for someone to go and help them get the sick clothes off and put fresh, clean clothes on. Being willing to put aside your own sensation and be able to step in and do what needs to be done. Man, it shows love. True, deep love that pours out of us from a place I'm not sure we could even pinpoint or define, you know? That kind of love is the love that Jesus is showing in this act of crawling around on the floor and washing his disciples' feet. This long night begins with this act of love. This long night will end with the cock crowing and Jesus being handed over to Pilate into the hands of certain death. In these 5 chapters in the book of John, Jesus shows his disciples the love that he has for them, and teaches them to love one another as he comforts them and prepares them for what is to come. He encourages them to love as he has loved. And it begins with this foot washing. Love governs all of this. It has governed all that was up to this point, and it governs everything that follows. This foot washing is an expression of that love. In a very interesting way. In the Gospel of John, is the only gospel that does not have the Lord's Supper, as we heard from the reading of Corinthians, where Jesus takes the bread and the cup and shares it with his disciples. That's not the expression of love we find here in the book of John. In John, only Judas eats. There are no echoes of the Eucharist in that chapter. They happen elsewhere in John. With the feeding of the 5,000, we kind of see an echo of them gathered around a table, a meal, and the importance of breaking bread and sharing bread. And in one of my favorite Bible stories, after the resurrection, when Jesus shows up at the campfire with his friends and they all have breakfast, I love that story. Who doesn't want a really big breakfast after a long, hard night? I know I do. It's an echo of the importance of this meal that we share together, that we break bread and gather together to eat. But the primary act of Jesus' radical self-giving, poured out love in John is all tied up in this act of Jesus getting down on the floor, crawling around and washing his disciples' dusty, sweaty, dirty feet. This is the part that's a little uncomfortable for me, because I know how dirty and gross my feet are. Plain and simple. How many of you have been uncomfortable when you come to church on Maundy, Thursday, and they announce that we are all going to take off our shoes and come up and wash one another's feet? How many of you that is uncomfortable? Yes. How many of you specifically do not come to church on Maundy, Thursday because you know the possibility is there that they might ask you to take off your shoes and invite you to wash feet? I know it happens. Washing our feet is personal. It's intimate. It's uncomfortable. And I think we can see a little bit of our own internal uneasiness in the response of Peter in this gospel. No, Jesus, you will never wash my feet. Absolutely not. We're not doing that. And Jesus says, wait a minute. If I don't wash your feet, then you have no part with me. And I love Peter because he has an immediate 180, okay, then you wash all of me right now. What? And Jesus says, no, just your feet. We only need your feet. It's a radical thing that Jesus does for his disciples. This was the work of a slave, to crawl around on the floor and deal with the dirt and the grime. And Jesus puts the towel around his waist, crawls on the floor, and washes his disciples' feet. Peter's response invites us to consider our own reaction and our own understanding of what it means to let someone love us. How hard it is to accept the fact that we are loved by God, truly and deeply all the way loved by God. Even the gook between our dirty, stinky toes is loved by God. How hard it can be to accept that we are Jesus's, that we are already made clean, and then to accept that we are always with him and he with us, and that God continues to cleanse even the parts of us that we consider most unworthy of his gaze. The less than lovely parts we'd prefer to hide away under layers and layers of ourselves. But God, who sends light into the impenetrable darkness, is certainly not daunted by our brokenness and our togook. God sends God's love through all of that. Love is the best answer to every hurting, stinky thing in the world. Love is God's answer. Love is Jesus' answer. And love is to be our answer. We are to love one another as Jesus has first loved us. This is where that love we have, that place we don't really know what it is, that's where that love comes from inside of us. That love of God, buried deep. God's love poured out before us at our feet in this story is the lesser scandal of the book of John. The more mysterious scandal is yet to come. The scandal of God's very life poured out on the cross for one and for all. The scandal where God allows the vulnerability of divine love to extend to its furthest extent, to be defenseless before lying, power-grasping, Caesar-worshiping authorities. Then, in love's greatest act of all, love comes back and shows up, quietly returning to a woman weeping at a tomb in a garden, and a bunch of fearful disciples who have locked themselves away. And love shows up. And Jesus lets them touch his wounds and his side, as he breathes the Spirit of life and truth and love upon them. All of the book of John is this story of God's love for the world. And this chapter is that love, that very love displayed in intimate specificity for you. Jesus' love for his own. Our participation in the vulnerable, mysterious, life-giving love of God begins with Jesus kneeling before us, humbling himself, humbling us. It is in pouring ourselves out in love as the beloved teacher has done, and as he makes it possible for us to do, that we become able to function as his servants, to live in that love, to be Jesus' sent ones to this world, to be his friend, and to reflect his light of love and peace in this world that God loves so much. Do you know what I have done for you, Jesus says. Do you know the love that I have for you, Jesus says. May we live and give that love. Amen.